it's like whatever. It's a 24-hour gym. I just didn't want to go before and get myself all sweaty and stuff like that. So
hello, and welcome to Life Love Etc., a show that covers all aspects of life, relationship, and success. And I'm your host, Dr. Anna Elton. And I'm here with our special guest, Angela Ahimsa. She is a holistic wellness expert and the founder of Feed Your Chakras. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I know nothing about you, and I would love to find out because I read a little intro and I was like, wow, she's amazing, and I would love to know all about chakras. I know nothing. So can you tell us what it is, how did you start, and what we can do about it?
Yeah, so the chakras are energy centers, and to translate it into more of a modern context that's easily digestible from like the Western perspective would be Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, right? So at the base, we have our foundation, which is our basic survival needs, like for love, for food, for shelter, for family, like our tribal ancestral instincts, water, sun, all those things that we need to survive. And then moving up, we have our emotional needs, which would be represented by the sacral. So the base is the root because it connects us to earth. And then we have the sacral chakra, which is what you actually are an embodiment of with the work that you do. It's connected to our sensuality, our pleasure, our play, our emotions, and just being in flow. So the element connected to this would be water, right? So being very fluid and not too rigid, but like you're spontaneous, you do things that bring you joy and passion. And then moving up is the solar plexus, which is just underneath the diaphragm in the higher like abdomen area. And it's connected to the fire element, which is our willpower and our ego, basically, and our self-esteem. And all of these are governed by the material realm. And this is actually where most human beings are operating. And it's because we're, being controlled by our egos, and we're, easily manipulated by our subconscious fears, or we're living in a state of lack or scarcity. But bringing these into balance is really important because that's how we can like come into our higher selves, which is the heart chakra, which is basically a portal into our higher selves or into the higher dimensions. And it's governed by love, by forgiveness, compassion, understanding, and non-judgment. And most importantly, like love for yourself and like boundaries, because you can love somebody else and then like, self-sabotage yourself because you're not balanced in that chakra. And then moving into the throat, which is truth, communication, transparency, expression, like authentic expression. So not just communication in the words that you speak, but like talking the talk and walking the walk, like living in your authentic truth and speaking the truth in a way that is kind and compassionate because you've evolved into this like more benevolent version of yourself. And then we have the third eye chakra, which is our intuition. It's our insight, our inner wisdom, our imagination. And it's our sixth chakra, and it's the sixth sense. And so it's our ability to, see without our ears. So see without our eyes, hear without our ears, feel things without actually touching them, seeing things without actually seeing them with the eyes closed or just in your mind, or just like knowing things, right? It's that higher wisdom and being able to tap into that because we are connected to things on a higher vibration beyond what like our normal eyes can actually comprehend. And then we have the crown chakra, which is the gateway and the portal to the divine. And I think it's really beautiful because it's so symbolic that when we're born, we have a soft spot on the top of our head. And it's like the last part that like forms when we enter the world through our mother's portal. And it's because that is the portal. That's where we connect. And it's where the soul enters the body, but it's also where the soul leaves the body when we cross over. So that's a basic introduction to the 7 major chakras. We have more than just the 7, but these are the ones that run along the spine. So
This is so interesting. Oh my goodness.
That's why I was like, when you were telling me what you do, I was like, you are totally sacral chakra. It's also the sex chakra, and you're the sex doctor. So
yes. So before we dive into all the chakras, I want to know a little bit about you. So how did you start with this? So from your bio, I learned that you were in advertisement, right? And I feel like it's a big jump from advertisement to chakras, right? And spirituality. So how did it all start?
Oh, it was a long jump. Okay, so I started because I was always really creative, right? I was always very artistic. And I think part of that was just, well, it was my sacral chakra, but it was also very intuitive. And I went into university originally for graphic design, and then I switched my major in university. And it was a lot of fun in university. Like, I really enjoyed working on the cool projects that we had because they were all very intentional. And I think they do that to inspire us. And then I got into the workforce. I got into the agency that I wanted to. And my creative director was just like, you know, Angela, you come to these meetings and you just look like you're bored. Like, I couldn't hide it. Like, I'm so transparent, and I'm like, I am bored, and I hated it. I worked for all of these conglomerate companies that were good clients, but they were horrible to work for. And we did study at my university about conscious consumption. So I had, you know, some insights into that, but everything that I was doing was creating problems that didn't exist, to manipulate people to sell them stuff that they don't need, that was destroying the planet. So it was like I was having this moral dilemma, but I wasn't really even sure what it was. Just everything felt off. And it was basically the system or the matrix, you know, and I was like actually exposed to it, and in this 9 to 5, and my whole body started falling apart. Like, I'd always been really fit and healthy. And I basically kind of started living for escapism for the weekend and stuff. And then I went on my first trip by myself to Thailand, and I experienced all of these crazy miracles there. And that was my first eye opener. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I was actually right after like The Secret came out, you know, that movie. So it was kind of like my first like initiation into like the metaphysical and even knowing anything about that. And then I came back and I just kind of put out this intention to the universe that I wanted to go to Europe. I wasn't super specific. But the next day, I literally had an email from one of the girls I went to university with, and she invited me to Northern Ireland. And I went there and thought that would be great, but it was even worse, right? And so I quit my job after working there for, I don't know, 9 months or whatever. And that's when I started my entrepreneurial journey. And then it was a lot of me kind of unlearning a lot of stuff and kind of refiguring myself out, because I was traveling all the time in new countries, and I didn't really have anything to ground me to my old identity. But what really happened was when I did come back to Canada, it's when my mother was actually very sick and she passed away. And actually that whole experience was super traumatic, but I actually brought her back to consciousness in the hospital after she'd been in a coma for a few days. And I did it with my hands, and it was like super intentional. And I just realized that there was like so much more to what I wanted to do. And I didn't even realize I was a healer then, but that's kind of how the journey started. And then it's just been one thing after the other. So.
Oh, this is amazing.
In a nutshell.
So you went to Thailand. So what was something that inspired you and kind of started this journey?
Okay, so in Thailand, I went there actually because I was dating a guy in university, and I broke up with him because I found out he cheated on me, and he actually like proposed to me, and I didn't go back to him. And so I decided to treat myself this trip, which was like my first adventure as a reward for like choosing myself. And when I went there, I had nothing planned. This is my first like adventure by myself. And all I had was my first hotel night, and it was on Khao San Road. Like that was it. I was going to let the trip take me. And when I got to Khao San Road, I was walking down the street and I saw this fortune teller, this guru, like this Indian Sikh guy with like a turban on his head. And I was just walking down the street because I was so happy. I was like smiling from ear to ear. And he's like, "Oh, you funny looking girl, you come with me." And he told me that he'd tell me the name of my mother, my number of siblings, my birthday, and the name of my boyfriend. And it was only that he said my boyfriend that I even went, because I was kind of like, oh, what is he going to say? Because I had just broken up and that was my reason. And he had a really weird name because he was Trinidadian. It was very uncommon. It was Adil. And so anyways, this guy told me all of these things about my life that was so on point. And I actually didn't realize, like, I'm actually kind of psychic, but at the time I didn't know, right? So I was probably like screaming this information at him, but he told me all of this stuff. And I was just so taken aback by how much he knew about my life without actually knowing me. And at the beginning, before telling me anything, he wrote on a piece of paper all of those little tidbits of information. And then he gave it to me afterwards. And he had like my mother's name. He had one brother, like I have one biological brother, a lot of soul family though. And he had my boyfriend's name, which was like so unbelievable because it's just such a random name. And then afterwards he told me that, like he told me a few things, and then he said I had like a question. So he had mentioned I was going to meet somebody and they were going to put me in danger. So of course I wanted to know who was going to put me in danger. Oh, he also told me I was going to lose everything and then get it all back because I had good karma, which did happen on this trip. And what actually happened was I lost my entire money belt, which had my birth certificate in it, my visa, all of my cards, all of my identification, all of my money, like my cash. And I had one little Thai guy who I just randomly went to his shop. I don't know why I chose his shop. It was my intuition, I guess. But he helped me. He literally put me on his car and didn't speak a word of English and drove me around to all of these different places looking for my money belt. And he was talking to them in Thai. And then he took me out for lunch after 3 hours, and the word had gotten out that I lost everything and I couldn't eat because I was so upset. But I remembered that book, Eat, Pray, Love, that I was reading. And I remembered that manifestation technique that she used, where she wrote a letter to the universe and like summoned all of these energies. So I in my head, I wrote a letter to the universe and I was like, I'm getting home on this day. I had a handwritten police report that I was supposed to take to Bangkok from like the south of Thailand. Like it was just such an unrealistic scenario that I was like, I'm not accepting this as my fate. So I was like, I'm getting on that plane. I don't know how it's going to happen. And I started imagining all of the people who would want me to come home. And then I got this idea because he kept pointing at people's sleeves. So I was like, what color was the shirt? Like he didn't speak a word of English, but I made him take me back to one of the people, and then they had my money belt. And so that was like one of the major miracles that happened on that trip. And then I also met this girl, and he told me that the girl who's going to put me in danger, her name was Kelly. And then I met a girl whose name was Kelly. And she did put me in danger, but not in the way that I thought. People actually thought we were sisters because we looked so much alike. And she was actually the first fire hooper that I'd ever seen. And so I was like mesmerized by her. I was like, oh, I want to do that one day. It's so sexy. And I intuitively felt like I could trust her, but I was scared because I was projecting this idea that like I was going to lose all of my ID or whatever, because that's what I had just lost. I thought that she would put me in danger by doing that, but I still let her stay with me because she was having problems with this guy and she was uncomfortable. So I didn't sleep a wink at night thinking like she was going to rob me or something, but she did end up putting me in danger because I wasn't planning on like putting myself in any uncomfortable situations or doing any sort of drugs or anything, but she got me to smoke weed with these Thai guys out of this bamboo bong, and we almost got busted. And it was like the scariest thing ever. And she's like, don't attract it. And I was like, okay, everything's good. Everything's good. But she did put me in danger. And so everything that that guy had said actually came true, but not in the way that I was expecting it. So anyways, that was a lot, like a few of the many miracles that happened in that short 2-week trip. But it was very, very life-changing.
Wow. you're so adventurous. And
I am.
um, okay, so that was the first introduction to chakras and
Yeah.
intuition. So what happened next? So when you came back from Thailand, right? How did you do you feel like you wanted to do all that right away, or do you feel like there was like continuation of journey? Like how did you end up doing
Oh,
now?
actually, that was the beginning of my journey out of the country. Because after that, I came back and then I moved to Northern Ireland. And then after Northern Ireland, I started my own business. And then I started traveling to Latin America, which is more like my home away from home. I feel more Latin than I do. But it wasn't actually until I came back to Canada and had experienced all that stuff with my mother. And then I started I started studying integrative nutrition, then I got into Reiki, and then I started doing plant medicine, and I became a yoga teacher, and it's just been like an evolution. But I think it was probably when I started teaching yoga or like doing Reiki that I first kind of discovered about the chakras, and I really liked them, but I don't know what really inspired it.
So interesting. So I know you also work with fire hoops, right?
Oh, well, I that was my original fire tool. I have a few now. I've evolved.
So how does it look like now?
So I still do the fire hoop. I'm really good with the fire hoop because I have like a gymnast background and I teach yoga. So I do a lot of like acrobatic stuff. Like I can do like a headstand with it going around my foot and stuff like that, that not everybody can do. I just got a dragon staff, which is over there. I have fire fans. I also have a fire sword, which like, it's kind of like belly dance. I balance it on my head and stuff. And I have palm torches as well. I have fleshing wands, and I think that's everything that I have. But I mean, there's also a staff that I use, but I don't have one. So yeah.
This is so awesome. Is this something that you do every single day, like once a
I
week?
don't do it every day. I did it, after lockdowns because like nobody was going out. There was this huge surge of like everybody wanting entertainment. So I was almost a full-time entertainer for like the 2022 or 2021. I can't remember. Now it's not as much, at least in the clubs. Like on Saturday, I did 2 gigs. I was actually asked to do 3. It was just like physically impossible. But yeah, in the summertime, it's a lot more popular, but in the wintertime it is. And it's not my better money, but it's something I really enjoy to do. So.
It's so fun. I saw your profile.
Yeah, it is. I love dressing up, and I used to have the biggest performance anxiety. So actually, that's one thing that happened in Thailand. I started fire dancing. I went back there like a few years later and I fulfilled that fantasy of doing it. I just brought my fire hoop and I went to this island on Koh Phi Phi and it was a full moon. And I'm like, okay, nobody knows me here. So I'm just going to ask them if I could perform. And I did. And I was so afraid, but I did it. And then they actually invited me to come back and I performed with them the next night. And then I just ended up staying there for 3 months and performed with these guys who were so good every single night that it switched the mentality because I was learning from them and I learned not to like over deliver and stuff, like to build up the performance. And then it became about expressing rather than trying to impress people, so it would be like do something and get the audience interaction, and it just made me such a better performer. And now it's like I was born to perform. Like I really love it.
I love that. So how did you start with fire? I'm thinking everyone can do fire. It's like
well, you don't start with the fire. So I after seeing that girl Kelly, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. But then I didn't pick up a hula hoop forever. And it wasn't until I actually came back from Argentina the first time. You mentioned that you used to be in pageants. Well, that's how I got into my modeling career. I was asked to be in this Miss Perfect 10 competition or pageant. And I knew that I needed to do something because I was living in Argentina for so long and just eating like empanadas and stuff. So I was like, I need to get myself into shape. So I like went down to Winners. I was that's where I was staying. There was like one in the building, and I was like, I need a sign. And then I saw this weighted hula hoop, which was like this huge hula hoop, and it was 8 pounds, which is not something ideal for like fire hooping, but I used it. It's for weight loss, right? Not that it was really big, but I just wanted to tone up. And I swear, like I have like abs of steel like now. And I think it's like, that was a big part of my foundation, is like working with this 8-pound hula hoop. But anyways, I got really good with the hula hoop. And then I went to a fire, workshop. So you don't start with the fire. Even my dragon staff, which I'm like almost tempted to show you right now, it has practice prongs on it. So I use the fire once I've used it a few times and I'm like comfortable with it and stuff. But you always can burn yourself. It's not like impossible. I have like little nicks once in a while too, but like you're so in flow and there's like so much adrenaline, like you don't even notice it. And usually actually like I do fleshing, which freaks people out. It's where you take the fire and you go and you rub it along your skin. But it's Kevlar that's burning and there's fuel. So it doesn't actually burn your skin unless you hold it. Like if you're dragging it, it doesn't burn you. So I do a lot of really crazy stuff.
Wow. That's impressive. So if we transition back to chakras, so when you start to become interested in chakras, so what is one thing that really impressed you with chakras? You know, how can you help yourself, right? You mentioned multiple. So like, where do you start if you want to learn more and, you know, help yourself? Like, where do you usually start and how do you do that?
Well, everybody has some sort of block, right? Like you're either and actually, a lot of people have a lot of blocks, right? But it's just becoming more self-aware. And I think that's kind of one of the benefits of yoga is it's the journey to self, right? And you start to like analyze things. For me, I was always very intuitive, but I was super ungrounded. I also had a really blocked heart chakra because I had a lot of trauma growing up. And I remember I went to this goddess ceremony. I was invited. It was when I started my career and I was at this co-working space and the lady, the founder, she invited me. And it was weird because it was almost like it was for me. Like, I think I was one of the only people that was there. And I went to this goddess activation ceremony and it was put on by an elder, like this indigenous woman. And she had the sage and she had drums and it was so powerful. I actually thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't realize that this was actually before I even really knew what the chakras were, but it opened my heart chakra and I felt it. Like I thought I was going to have a heart attack and I was like, okay, don't freak out. God wouldn't do this to you now. And I sat through it and I was like using all of these tools, like I was breathing through it, trying to calm myself down. But that was the first time it actually happened. And I mentioned it to somebody the next day and they're like, oh, that sounds like your heart chakra opened up. But, you know, there's just a lot of the things is like, we think that the chakras are so like abstract, but if you have anxiety all the time, then like you're very ungrounded, right? And there's just things you can do, like go connect to nature, go walk on the earth and absorb the earth's energy and you will automatically feel more grounded. Or you can eat things that will bring you comfort. Like there's just a lot of things you can do. And that's kind of what I explore in Feed Your Chakras is different ways to work through it because we just don't identify them by these energetic centers, right? But we're all affected by it. Also, the throat was probably my biggest blocked chakra too, which I worked a lot on it, as you can tell.
So with chakras, how do you know like what's unbalanced, ungrounded, what's not open, I guess?
Yeah, so if there's no energy flowing, it's funny because I just did like the whole chakras 101. So it's like, you know, this is what it governs. For each chakra, it's different. So let's just say, we'll just go a little bit over each chakra. So the root chakra, like I said, if you have anxiety or if you get angered easily, or say you have financial problems because it's the money chakra, because it's in our modern day society, we need money to survive. Like it's a survival skill, right? And it's really just an energy and it's just a measurement of exchange for like the value that we give it, but not knowing your worth, or not being able to save money, or maybe you spend money, or it's just that lack mentality. Maybe you hoard things. Like those are all signs of imbalance, because you're either like the energy is not flowing. So if you're hoarding, it's because you're afraid that nothing's going to come in, right? Or like if you're like hoarding your money because you're afraid like the economy is going to collapse. And so that creates like a stagnancy, and not just in your energy, but it affects everybody else's energy. So that's the root chakra. With the sacral, which is the emotions, it's connected to your sensuality, your pleasure, your play. Like if you feel guilty, or you have shames, or maybe like you are shamed about your sexuality or something like that, and you're hiding it and like harboring those emotions and not expressing them, like that manifests as sickness, right? Or like it can come as like a physical ailment, like our hips are connected to our emotions. So if you're not expressing yourself, like you can get really tight hips, or bringing it in, like if you're so worried about what other people are going to think, and you're not doing the things that bring you joy, like that's an imbalance, right? So it's really like coming into knowing who you are, and not letting all of society's projections and stuff dictate to you who you should be or how you should act or feel. And then with the solar plexus, if you don't know your worth, or like you're people pleasing, or if it's overactive, like you have a really big ego and you judge people, or you criticize them, or like you're a bully, right? Like you're in that like ego. But on the like underactive side is when like you're a victim, right? And you don't believe in your worth, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't believe in your capabilities or your ability to succeed, you're not going to, right? And so this is the manifesting center, right? So each one, like you have the sex chakra, the pleasure center, the root chakra is like survival, safety, and grounding. And then this is the manifestation center. So it's all about your personal belief. And then the heart chakra is your ability to love, and then express, to connect intuitively, and then this is to connect, and your faith. So if you are blocked in faith, or you don't believe, that would be blocked. If you are so stuck in a pattern, like how people like they live their lives every single day, and like they don't trust any intuitions, it's just like that would be a block, because you're just not open to the universe and the signs. Like there's signs all around you, like a song can come on and that could be an intuitive hit, right? But like a lot of people will block that off because they just don't believe in the unseen. And a block in your throat chakra would look like not being able to express your boundaries if you don't feel safe, or somebody's insulting you or whatever, or you're afraid of saying something and offending somebody at the cost of yourself. So just things like that. It's basically like things that throw you out of alignment with your sovereignty and your higher self.
So interesting. You open your chakras, right? Is it possible that at some point, if you don't maintain, they will close back down, or not?
Yes.
So how do you maintain? How do you protect yourself and block from all the negativity and keep yourself grounded?
Well, okay. So like for me, I had kind of almost healed my root chakra when I was younger. Like I had a really tough childhood, and then I had some support, and then I became kind of like successful in like the manifesting of what I wanted. But then I was brought back into a vulnerable situation with my parents, and it made me so vulnerable and triggered me and brought back all of those childhood woundings that I had to like re-heal, because it was more of like a superficial, like it was just a Band-Aid at that point that I like moved past it, but I hadn't actually dealt with it, right? And that's why it's really important to actually do the work, because at any time, like your ego can take you out. You can think that you healed something, but if you haven't really addressed the core issues of whatever it was that brought you into that toxic situation or that mindset or that pattern, if it's not healed, then it can always resurface. And so that's what the chakra is, like the chakra work is. It's like coming into the foundation of what it is. And like your chakras actually, they kind of form throughout your years. So it's like every 7 years, like the first 7 years is your root chakra. And that's when we are literally like in a state of hypnosis, and we're absorbing all of these these projections from our caretakers and all these things, and that's like our childhood traumas, and it all is associated with the root. So it's like, you know, kind of having to like unlearn all of that is the real work. And until you kind of address those core issues, like, it can take you out at any time.
It's so interesting. So usually when you try to open your chakras and heal yourself, do you start with your first chakra or you can start at any point?
It's like, it's funny because they're all connected. Like the root, I feel like, is everybody has some sort of like childhood trauma. Like it's just everybody does, and it's just, I don't know anybody who's had a perfect childhood. But based on people's life's experiences and how they internalize those experiences, whether they take them on as like this happened to me or they actually grow from it, that dictates like how their chakras are. But I mean, some people can be open in some respects, like maybe they're a public speaker, but then with their partner, like they're dishonest and lying, and like, that's an imbalance, right? So it's kind of, it's all of our own choices. So it's really like what it is that you need to work on, and coming into that like knowledge of like, who do I actually want to be, and like, who am I supposed to be, and how does that person act, and bringing yourself into alignment with that. And then that should be like your guiding principle. And I mean, also nobody's perfect, like we're all just humans, like navigating this crazy life. So
it sounds like you need to be really self-aware of who you are and who you want to be. So is it something that's being guided by someone like you, by an expert, or it's you like usually come and you say like, okay, this is what I need to work on?
Well, I feel like it's always good to have somebody else to at least bounce stuff off of. Like I've had mentors throughout my life, not necessarily with this work, like a lot of the work that I did. I mean, I did also do a lot of plant medicine, and that's very, eye-opening to your own shadows and stuff. But the problem is like a lot of people don't want to do the work, right? And they're not even like, they're not conscious that maybe they're attracting the same situations or the same scenarios, and that's kind of in that state of like victimhood, right? Like, oh, I always have this. So it really first kind of comes from, I believe, like the consciousness or the acknowledgement of or like your awakening that like you want more, right? If you don't actually want more, like some people are comfortably uncomfortable and they're happy there, and they're like, because it's their like safe survival mode. And even with diet, like I also do a lot of stuff with food, right? A lot of people don't know how good their body can feel, because they only know what their body feels like, and they've only eaten a certain way. Like some people have never done an elimination diet and realize, wow, this thing's creating inflammation and now I have all this extra energy. Like they just don't know because they're comfortably uncomfortable. So growth happens outside of your comfort zone. So it's like, if you have to be like willing or adventurous, I'm very adventurous. I've gone to like the depths of my own hell. But anyways, like you have to be willing to get out of that and to take those chances and be, uncomfortable. Like learning a new language for me as an adult, extremely uncomfortable, because you have to go through the stage where you sound like you're in grade 1, making these basic sentences and stuff. But if you don't do that, you don't learn. So it's really, it's up to the person, right? You can't force people to, but I feel like it's worth it. It's so much more rewarding to evolve.
So it's like a growth mindset, right? You need to step outside of a comfort zone to
Yeah.
into a better version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really scary, as you mentioned, people are so comfortable in their dysfunctions.
Yes.
And when you think of the stages of change, usually everyone starts at the pre-contemplation stage. That's when you say like, I don't have an issue, I don't need to do anything, I'm okay as I am, right? And then usually something happens, and then at some point people may potentially move to the contemplation stage when they say like, okay, I don't like who I am, or like I need to change something, I need to work on that. So at that stage, change is not possible yet, but at least it's the first step, right? So maybe someone, if they want to get in better shape, maybe they're gonna sign up for gym, but they're not consistent, or they try to work out starting Monday, and then that Monday never comes, right? It's like, okay, next week. So that's the kind of contemplation stage. Or maybe you start, but then you then stick with that. And then at some point you move to the action stage. That's when you're ready for work and you're willing to do what it takes to be a better version of yourself. And then the last stage is maintain stage. That's when you need to make sure that you're still doing something to maintain the good progress. That's why I was wondering if this is similar, right, with chakras. When you do the work, you open your chakras, do you need to do something to maintain it, or like you're done, you're complete product?
Yeah, well, I think you have to embody it, right? Like it's like any changes in our lives, like which is also very root chakra, because it's that comfort, it's like where your home is like your comfort zone, right? And it's hard to move. Anything like that's a big adjustment. Like it's easy to take a step outside and experience a new environment, but then like to actually stay out there, it's like a big change. And so it is about the consistency. I actually did this mentoring, and it was all about like conscious shifts and the structures that we that govern us, right? And so that's just like you have to literally like commit to this new structure, because it's so easy until you have made that the new structure that like is familiar to you. It's like even like an addiction. It's just like one little step back and you can fall back into those patterns or anything like that. However, sometimes you can have like something so bad happen where it's almost like divine intervention, that it creates a quantum leap. Like you literally jump into a new reality because maybe you had a breakup, or you got fired from this toxic job, or something happened that like forced you to shift. And that's also like a shift in perspective too, because you can either be like, oh my gosh, like this happened to me, or you can take that as like the pivot point where you're like, okay, I got to do something now. And so sometimes those things are like a blessing, right? Because it forces us to change. I've changed a lot, because when you move to a new country, you don't have anything familiar, right? So you're kind of like, who do I want to be now? So
It's so amazing. So you traveled around, right? You went to Thailand, you went Argentina, right? Ireland. So
yeah.
what do you think you kind of took away from each country? Like, what are your
Oh.
favorite parts? And is there any, I guess, wisdom, knowledge?
Yeah, well, I've been to 34 countries. Like I did a lot, because I did some, like when I left Northern Ireland, I did 14 on a shoestring, right? So it's like but like that was a huge check off my bucket list, and that was really what inspired me to be like, I can never return to the 9 to 5, so that was the blessing in itself. But I was just so inspired by all the culture and by the people and just the different lifestyles and everything, which I wish more people could experience that, because everybody lives in fear, and we have these like stereotypes of who people are, or whatever, based on, what we see on like the news and stuff. And I can tell you, as somebody who traveled alone around the world, like I realized that I'm my own worst enemy. Like anything that like possibly could have happened bad to me usually didn't happen, but if it did, it was because it was my own fault, and like I would have strangers, or maybe this is just what I put out there and I attract it back, but anyways, I would like sometimes like I'd leave my camera like absentmindedly and go look something, and then people would bring it back to me. Like I always had benevolent people like helping me out wherever I went. And I just never think, like, I don't really think that the world is a scary place. Like people are like, oh, I went to Brazil and I was in Bahia, and that's like a very poor part. And, I dropped some money and this little kid gave me the money. Like, it's just like, it's not such a scary world out there. And so it just really opened my eyes to how beautiful humanity actually is, which is what they don't usually put out there in the news,
So what was your most exotic experience?
I would say Bali. I really love Bali. It's so beautiful. I really like Thailand, but I went to Bali. I actually did raw vegan chef training in Bali. I went there a few times. I had a Vedic astrologer he worked on all these famous people like Princess Diana and stuff. And he gave me some really like accurate predictions of my life, or like assessments and stuff that were all true. And yeah, it was just, I don't know, there's something about Bali, like the energy there is really, really divine and sacred. So I really like that. But I mean, every country has its own energy, it's hard to choose. I really liked Argentina. Like I actually called myself Angela Argentina for a long time. And then my dad lived in Mexico, so I would go to Mexico a lot. I lived in Panama. I really like Latin countries. I like the Latin heat and like the language and the culture and stuff. But yeah, every country's beautiful. It's really hard to choose. But Bali, have you ever been?
No.
Okay, you should go.
Oh,
You'll feel it.
Definitely.
You'll feel it. It's just it feels so sacred and yeah, I mean it's very like touristy now if you go, but you still feel it.
It's amazing. So right now, when you think of yourself, when you think of Angela, so you mentioned your country is Argentina, right? You associate yourself with Argentina. So when you think of like, what is kind of the main job that you do, the main purpose for you? Like, what is it chakras? Is it yoga?
Oh, no, I would say like I help people reconnect to their sacred self. I don't really have a job title. Like I'm a creative director, actually. Like I still do a lot of creative work, and that's my bread and butter money. But now I'm in a transition where I'm starting to create for myself. I just started a YouTube channel. I started my own podcast as well. And Feed Your Chakras is my book series. So it's not just one book, it's 7. I'm doing one for each of the chakras, which has different tools and stuff. But it's basically to help people through food, through ritual, through energy and beauty, and just kind of bringing them back into loving themselves and honoring themselves. And I do that of different ways to help them nourish their soul. So I want to be more of like a healer than just a creator or a yoga person or whatever. It's all medicine to me. So
I love that. So if you can give one advice or takeaway for our viewers so they can create their own ritual, their healing practice, what do you think they should do?
Okay. Well, there's so many, and it's hard because everybody has a different learning style and a different preference. But I think one of the easiest and most powerful tools that people can use that they don't is their breath. Because everybody's breathing, but a lot of people breathe really shallow. And when you learn to breathe, even just slowing down your breath, like I'll just do it once. And like if you extend the exhale, you just feel, I don't even know if you could see my energy relax, but it's such a powerful tool. And that's actually what I do if I ever get nervous and stuff. I just focus on the breath. So it's so easy, it's absolutely free, and you'll get instant results.
So sometimes when I'm stressed out, I'm just doing like this and I'm breathing out. Or like shake it off, right? So you shake that stress.
Oh yeah, so that's another one. Like I'm a movement person, but movement, sometimes people don't want to move, right? But I feel like movement or breath are 2 really good things because we store trauma in our body too. So gotta shake it up.
So how about food? I know you mentioned, and I wanted to ask you about that diet, but like what are some of the foods that you think people should, consume, look for? Like what is good for your body?
Okay, well, actually, I have a course I created called Eat the Rainbow, and it's all about the phytonutrients of food, which nobody ever talks about. Like, if you read nutrition labels, it's all just like, oh, here's the fat, the carbs, the macros, and everything they want us to think. But all of the benefits of food, and I also, like, I'm not completely raw, but I really do believe in the importance of eating raw food, like, because it's crunchier, it's better for your jaw, it's got a higher vibration, and it's in its most raw natural state. So all of the living enzymes are intact and stuff, but also the phytonutrients. So the colors are the nutritional benefits. So if you eat purple, it's like for anti-aging and antioxidants, and orange is good for your eyes. It's got carotene, and like yellow, like ginger is also good for your skin. So it's just kind of using the colors as a guide rather than just the food labels is one of the things I would say, and try and eat a little bit of raw food for extra energy and vitality.
I love that. So it's really interesting that you mentioned different colors, because one of the, I guess, advices for stress, you need to try to eat foods of different colors. Red tomato, like yellow banana, right?
Yeah.
Green avocado. So you try to not just stick to one color, but multiple colors. That's what you fight the stress.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And it's also like I'm an artist and food is one of my favorite mediums, but I think of cooking, like I like to come at it from a nutritional standpoint as an artist. Is like, okay, what am I going to make here? And how can I solve this problem? Like, how can I make this high protein and low calorie, or, high vibration or whatever? But also it has to be aesthetically beautiful. So it has to be balanced. It has to have like a diverse textures and stuff. My food is very flavorful. Like all of my ingredients, I usually treat each ingredient like differently. Like I'll marinate this and I'll cook this separately. So it's kind of like an explosion of flavor. And I feel like all food should be like that.
That's awesome. I love that. So I know we talked about a lot of things, but before we wrap up, if you can give one more pointer, advice, takeaway for our viewers, what do you think they can do? We talked about the movement, right? The breath, food. Is there anything else they should look for?
Yeah, I think that it would just be about coming into alignment, and like softness. Like we're in such a hustle society where we're always in this, like we have to work, we have to do this, and we actually like ignore our own needs. And people don't give themselves permission to sleep or to say no, and just kind of honoring your body and honoring, like listening and tuning into who you are and what you want to do, and giving yourself permission to say no and like stand unapologetically in your truth. So important.
I love that. Thank you. That was Angela Ahimsa. And before we finish this episode, can you share with our viewers where they can find you, if they can watch your show?
Sure. Yeah. As I mentioned, I also have a podcast, and I want to feature her as well, because she would be perfect for the sacral chakra. My podcast is called Feed Your Chakras, and it is also streams on jessfm.ca on Saturday mornings, Eastern Standard Times at 11. And I also have a website to kind of showcase all of them. And for my books, it's called feedyourchakras.ca. And I am the Chakra Goddess on Instagram. So, and my website's Angela Ahimsa, AHIMSA.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for all your amazing advices.